Today, we're essentially opening a time capsule. We're going to jump back to the early 1900s and see the world through the eyes of William and Katherine Routledge. Now, these were two ethnographers who spent years living among the Agikuyu people in what was then British East Africa. And their book, With the Prehistoric People, gives us this absolutely incredible detailed snapshot of a society right on the edge of massive change. So let's dive in and see what they found.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First up, we'll get a feel for their land and their neighbors. Then, we're going to step right inside the home and see what daily life was actually like. After that, we'll get into their amazing skills as iron workers, then explore their unique system of justice, and finally, we'll dig into their spiritual world.
And you know, the Routledges themselves were the first to admit this was not easy. This quote from their own preface says it all. Just when they thought they finally understood something, a new piece of info would pop up and boom, the whole carefully constructed edifice tumbled into ruins. So yeah, this wasn't some simple, straightforward culture. It was complex, it was deeply layered, and honestly, that's what makes looking at it so fascinating.
All right, so let's start with the big picture. Who were the Agikuyu, and where did they live? A huge part of their identity wasn't just about their own customs, but about their relationship with their very famous neighbors.
To really get a handle on the Agikuyu, you've got to understand their relationship with the Maasai. They were like two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have the Agikuyu, farmers, their entire lives rooted in the fertile, cultivated hills, and on the other, the Maasai, pastoralists who roamed the wide-open plains with their cattle. This one difference shaped absolutely everything. I mean, look at the contrast in how they fought. The Agikuyu used bows, fighting from the dense forest cover, while the Maasai were legendary for their organized open-field charges with spears. This was a world defined by that dynamic between the farmer and the herdsman.
Okay, so from that wide-angle view of the territory, let's zoom right in. Let's get into the heart of Agikuyu society. What was the rhythm of their daily life? What did their year even look like?
Well, since they lived right on the equator, their calendar wasn't about summer and winter like we might think. It was all about the rains, the wet seasons, and the dry seasons. This timeline just shows you how deeply connected they were to the land. You can see the year is split into two whole cycles, each one kicking off with the rains. That meant 2 planting seasons and 2 harvests. Their entire life moved to this beat. And get this, when they talked about a year, a lot of the time they were actually just talking about one of these 6-month seasons. Kind of changes how you think about time, right?
Now here's something really important about how they lived. They didn't have villages in the way we might imagine them. The real core of their society was the family homestead, just a small cluster of huts surrounded by their fields. And inside this little cluster, there was a clear social order. For example, in a family with multiple wives, each wife had a right to her own separate hut. And there was often another hut, a thingyera, which was like a guest house and a hangout spot for the young unmarried men. And the Routledge, they wrote again and again about how incredibly clean and orderly these homes were.
All right, let's shift gears. We're going to talk about one of the most respected and absolutely vital skills in Agikuyu society, the art of working with iron. This wasn't just about making tools, this was about technology, art, and even wealth.
And what's so fascinating here is that being a smith, well, it wasn't a job you could just learn. It was all about your family, your lineage. As you can see, of the 13 different Agikuyu clans, 2 of those clans were completely forbidden from ever touching the stuff. We don't know exactly why, but it really suggests that this craft held a special kind of power, maybe even a taboo, that was really carefully controlled.
And this slide. Man, it gives us an amazing look at the incredible skill these smiths had. Just take a look at the process for making these superfine iron chains. They'd coil a thin wire around a thicker rod, then slice the whole coil open to make a bunch of little rings. But here's the crazy part, the 4th step. Each link was joined, overlapped, and then hammered shut. No solder, not a single drop. It was all just hammered together with incredible precision, all to make these beautiful ornaments.
And this was not some small niche craft, not at all. At the time, the Routledges estimated the Agikuyu population was about 500,000 people. Just think about that number for a second. And here's the kicker. They said every single person, man, woman, and child, used articles made from native iron. We're talking weapons, farm tools, razors, jewelry, you name it. It just shows you how the smith was absolutely essential to their entire society.
So that brings up a question, right? How does a society of 500,000 people keep things in order without a king, without a central government? Well, the answer is in their really intricate system of justice.
The whole system was decentralized. It was all about the community. You didn't have one single ruler calling all the shots. Instead, power was in the hands of these councils of respected elders known as the Kyama. These guys would get together, talk through disputes, weigh all the evidence, and then deliver a judgment. It was a system built on experience and community consensus.
And their legal code, wow, it was incredibly specific. This table just gives you a little taste of the penalties, which were mostly about paying restitution with livestock. But look at the huge difference here. Killing a man could cost you up to 120 goats and a cow, but killing a woman, only 30 goats. But for someone who just wouldn't stop stealing, the punishment was final. In one district, it was described in this chilling way. They were killed at night like a sheep. This was a highly structured, and yeah, a pretty severe system of justice.
Okay, for our last section, let's explore the spiritual world that was really the foundation for everything else in Agikuyu life. The relationship with God, with spirits, and with the people who helped them navigate that unseen world.
So this is the big question, isn't it? Their world wasn't just physical. It was absolutely teeming with spiritual forces that you had to understand, respect, and sometimes appease. So, how did they do it?
Right at the center of it all was a single, supreme god, Ngai. And Ngai was believed to live on the magnificent Mount Kenya. You can just imagine this massive, snow-capped mountain always there on the horizon. They didn't connect with Ngai in some temple. They did it out in nature. Sacrifices were made at the base of a sacred fig tree, the mugu, which was considered so holy you could never, ever cut it down.
Now, the key human guide in this spiritual world was the medicine man or mundu mugu. And this person was way more than just a healer. They were a diviner who could tell the future, a priest who could purify a person or a place from spiritual contamination, a protector who could make special charms for anything from success in battle to just getting a good price at the market. Basically, they were the community's essential guide for navigating that whole complex world between the physical and the spiritual.
You know, the Routledge account is this incredible window into a world that in a lot of ways is just gone. But it leaves us with this really powerful question. We've seen their laws, their crafts, their beliefs, a snapshot of their values and their soul from over a century ago. So if a society's laws show you what they value and their stories show you their soul, how much of that world is still alive today? Not in old books, but in the memories, the traditions, and the stories that are still being told. It's definitely something to think about.